Okay.
Got it.
Alrighty. So, once again, or maybe I didn't introduce myself in the beginning, but I'm going to introduce myself now. My name is Juanita Zuniga. I am the youth lead organizer at 482 Forward. In my role, I work very closely with the youth, and they are very happy to meet with you and to conduct all of these interviews, in preparation for our candidate forum. This October, which we'll talk more about at the end of the meeting, because we obviously are extending our invitation. But nonetheless, 482 Forward is an education justice organization. We center on making sure that our schools are equitable and our youth voices, specifically youth voices, are heard. And that is what we center in a lot of our youth work on, a lot of projects and campaigns throughout the school year. We just closed our campaign from the previous year that was centered on raising awareness around funds to invest more money in mental health. And our youth did a spectacular job. They were phenomenal. And that is just some of the recent work that we've done, our youth have done. But so that was us, that was me. And if we could just go around and introduce ourselves, giving our name, pronoun, and just who we are.
Sure, I can go. My name is Imani. I am a former youth organizer with 482 Youth. My whole time I was in high school, I organized with 482 Youth. Then I went off to college, and recently in June, I graduated from Northwestern University with a degree in journalism and Black Studies. And so now I'm back at 482 Forward as communications lead, and just really excited to still be working in education, still trying to fight for the same school system that birthed me, and all those things. So yeah, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I'll pass it to Azalea.
Hello, my name is Azalea. I'm one of the youth members for 482 Forward. I just joined recently. And my pronouns are she, her, hers. And yeah, I'm excited to talk to you today. I just, I'm just one of the youth working with, 482.
Okay, awesome. So do you want me to just say briefly who I am?
Yeah, and then if you want to tell us why you decided to run for school board as well, that would be pretty dope.
Certainly. I am Regina and Campbell, and my pronouns are her, hers, she. I am a native Detroiter, born and raised. I spent about 3 years, just real quickly, in Memphis, doing small business incubation for the region, as well as building community-based capital to help educate businesses and community. I also have had an opportunity to teach college students, as well as do some skills, social skills presentations for high school students in a variety of things. I will say I was born and raised, as I mentioned, and I went to Cooley High School. And I always like to say back when it was a soccer team, and I absolutely loved soccer. And so I live in Detroit with my husband and 2 sons who have been in public, private, and charter schools. So I've had a variety of experiences in my learning between me and my siblings, but also my sons. One is a second-year college student, and one is a sophomore in high school. And so during my time in school, I saw that I struggled a lot with learning, even though I excelled, got a lot of A's, and because I was afraid of my parents, but I always had to go back home and study and struggle and just reset myself around strengths and discover that I was a visual learner when I was working on my second graduate degree. And I know how it is important for providing all visual aids to our children. But I will say, going forward, I know that there are strengths that the Detroit Public School Community District has. But unfortunately, there's some challenges that we see. I mean, you talked about equitable access earlier, and I feel like I really want to be the one who can help us think about equitable access across the district for all children in specific things that address why there's absenteeism, things due to transportation. You all mentioned mental health and wellness, and I'm so glad you did because I care deeply about that as well and realize that we're a whole person. And so I want to run to be able to effectuate change that puts the child at the center and the voice at the center so that every child is able to learn based on where they are. Some of us are visual, some of our auditory, some of our tactile. And so just making sure we have all the resources in the classroom, outside the classroom to make learning very effective. And so I want to run to do that. And I'll close by saying to that question, there are certain positions by which we can help effectuate change from the outside. In my experience as a parent, talking to youth and talking to other parents and talking to teachers, in order to move forward agenda and equitable access and resources for our youth, you have to be in the position of a board member to create those changes. And so that's why I want to run from the inside to effectuate change across our district.
Thank you so much for your well-rounded answer. Our next question for you is, how would you engage the community, specifically students and parents, in making decisions with our schools outside of the school board meetings? And so by that question, we basically, how will you go above and beyond for our schools? We know that board meetings are a requirement, but what other plans or ideas do you have?
Thank you very much for that question, an important question. In practice and in life, I believe in co-designing solutions with those who we are intended to serve. And so for me, it would be about having what I call open office hours. It's something that I utilize in my workplace and in my experience where we can have one-on-ones with those that we serve. In this case, it will be able to have office hours where there are times when the parents and youth can communicate with me. Also, I welcome being invited to some of the youth seminar and forums and where youth engage to listen and hear feedback. And then going forward too, being able to go to the schools. I plan on continuing to visit schools and see what's going on and being available in those ways. And I'm also open to recommendations of things that I may have missed that are great ways to meet parents and students where they are. So I'm open to those recommendations as well. So again, open office hours, times where it's like, Regina and Campbell was available to listen and hear feedback, hear insights, hear challenges, but also hear the good things that are going on that people want more of, as well as going to the schools, seeing and hearing what's going on, and invitations to school events, youth events, where I can hear and observe what's going on as well. So those would be additional to board meetings, being engaged in community.
Okay, our next question for you is that, we know that the school board has a policy in place about the possession of weapons in schools, but there is an exception to weapons under the control of law enforcement personnel and items approved by the building principal as part of class or presentations. So in light of the recent issues regarding gun violence within schools, do you think that the policy should change to not allow any weapons in or around the schools?
So I appreciate that context around the question of guns in schools and the policy currently allowing for law enforcement to have guns in schools. I will respond by saying no guns in schools. That is the optimal solution for all of us. And in particular, we know that the board did an excellent job at revising and updating the student code of conduct to be more toward restorative practices, versus kicking students out of school and other things. And my preference is that we work with the school security guards, the parents, and the administrators to find out whatever alternatives there are to not need guns and or excessive force in the classes. One, I think this will lead to for all of the students, trust with police and law enforcement that are here to support schools. And so by not having guns, because if you pick it up, people will use it, or if it's around, people will use it. It's important to make sure that we deter any feelings of fear that could come into play for our students. And so that's my perspective on. I believe that there are other ways to address issues in a system that our youth, quite frankly, didn't create. So we can figure something else out.
Okay, thank you so much for your response. And just as a follow-up question for that, DPSCD sent out a robocall stating that they will be investing money to bring back police officers onto school grounds at the start of the fall semester. So do you agree with this decision? And if not, where would you like to see that money spent instead?
So again, great questions. And I think there's a lot of context around that. What I will say when it says school grounds is that outside to help with transportation and whatnot. And so I would be interested in understanding the context of when we say on school grounds, is that outside of the school, right? Because the first question was about weapons inside, and I adamantly say, no, we can find other ways to address the issues. Is there a better way that we should use the money? Of course. I've talked about this and continue to say that one, we need to retain and support our educators. So we always need to do what's best to make sure that there is equitable pay as well as professional development and opportunities for our educators to come outside of the classrooms. We also need to be able to provide books. I can tell stories of when I was in school and even now and thereafter, and even currently talking to parents and students about how some of them just do not have books. Additionally, technology is key. I always like to say that the youth of today are born with digital assets in their hands and devices. We have to provide technology. So yes, certainly there are better uses for funds than adding additional police to the grounds of the schools. I think there's so many more interventions we can do before we bring police into school matters when it comes to our youth.
Thank you so much for your response.
Yes, thank you so much. Our next question, the state's 2023 budget includes $150 million for mental health within schools. Do you believe that is an appropriate amount? And what do you see done? What do you want to see done with those funds in DPSCD?
So it's definitely a great investment. Mental health is something that's tremendously important. We're always asked about, well, why are students absent? There's a number of reasons why students are absent. Our mental health and wellness is key, and so we have to make investments. What I would like to see with that money, first and foremost, is for parents, students, and administration to work together to see who are the experts who have implemented successful health and wellness, mental health and wellness services in their schools and in their districts, right? Some of us, we're not that expert. So one, we want to make sure we evaluate who the expert is, determine whether or not there's a specific curriculum that can go from pre-K all the way to 12 and implement that across the district, right? So there's learning and knowledge that is important to have for a classroom. Aside from that, what are there other resources that are successful in our district of organizations that exist for health and human services that can also be invested in to provide wraparound support outside of the classroom, not only for the youth, but also to families. So again, this investment is key, and it's important that we support our youth and our children, not only with just the academics, but the whole person and well-being. And so again, let's start with the experts. Let's see what's working well in other districts in Michigan, what makes sense across the country. Come together as a community with youth, our administrators, as well as parents and say, and caregivers, and say, this is what we want for our youth and build that forward.
Definitely. Thank you for that answer. So our next question is regarding curriculum.
Mhm.
In what ways do you think that DPSCD should make school curriculum more diverse and representative of the student body? And so when we say diverse, we mean, like, of course, we have one of the Blackest districts in the state, but also we have Muslim students, we have Jewish students, we have students who speak different languages. And so how can we make the curricula just more diverse in the district?
That's an amazing question. And I always like to think of these opportunities. I say opportunities, some people say challenges, but these opportunities as a big elephant. And so evaluating, what do? We eat elephant, what? One bite at a time. And so we are diverse, and our education and curriculum should reflect that. We know that in colleges, oftentimes we are exposed to the diversity of our world, quite frankly, global, and we're brought into the classroom. Teachers are talking about, different diversity. We want that to start as early as kindergarten, all the way through high school, right? Because we are diverse. So naturally, we should have all schools should have the capacity to be able to teach the diversity of the students, one from a curriculum perspective, both having translation services, but also books and tools that are translated for other non-English speaking students and families, while also continuing to bring in experts and others from other places and diversity to talk to us and talk to students, to educate them about the different culture uniqueness that everyone shares. From a visual aid too as well, the students who are diverse, allowing them to present and represent who they are. Naturally, we are beginning to acknowledge other holidays throughout the school year, which is a step forward to that. Again, educating people around the differences and students around the differences will be key and very important. There are questions specific to history and curriculum. History has a lot to do with how our lived experiences have been. And it's certainly a great opportunity in curriculum to have healthy conversation, debate, and presentation from students about history, historical context. And so I look forward to, enhancing curriculum. One, who's doing this already? You'll find that I look at data a lot. I look at experts and best practices. Who has curriculum that is as diverse and representative of our district that we could potentially implement all of it or parts of it that makes sense for who we are? But who makes that decision ultimately? Again, I think it's important that administrators, students, parents, and caregivers come around together and evaluate this particular diverse curriculum and build what makes sense for Detroit students.
Okay, thank you for that. My next question I have is, what is your stance on the current uniform policy in DPSCD alongside the strict dress codes?
Well, let's start with the uniforms. When I was in high school, we didn't have uniforms. I do not enjoy students having to wear uniforms for a few reasons. I don't know that it was a parent choice where I can say for my children, it wasn't a parent choice. You come and this is what it is. I also believe that it's certainly okay to have certain restrictions of what we can wear. It's a part of life. There are certain things that I have to wear, I can't wear to the office as a professional, and it's certainly okay to have certain parameters around what we wear as long as it's not violating any individual's rights. I will go there with that. But again, uniforms aren't necessary from my perspective. It allows our individuality of style, allows our youth to come into their own, to be able to determine what it is that they enjoy about, style and fashion. I like to think that Detroit is one of the fashion spots, one in the country, quite frankly. And so uniforms really aren't necessary from in my perspective. And I know to some degree, people might be like, well, it's cost savings, not necessarily. And we know that some students aren't able to afford uniforms, which I've talked to some parents, to some reasons why they don't start school or go to school because they can't afford them. So um, uniforms aren't a priority, I'll say. I think there's more things that we can focus on for the good of the student than everybody looking the same.
Thank you so much for your answer. I definitely know a lot of our youth appreciate that perspective. So our next question, DPSCD just voted to acknowledge Pride Month in the school calendar. How will you stress the importance of advancing LGBTQ plus equity in classrooms?
So like with other underrepresented groups, I would want to make sure one, students, parents and administrators and caregivers are knowledgeable about what does that mean when we say LGBTQ students or individuals, right? What does it mean? Because knowledge is power. And just like every other group or entity wants to be respected and treated with dignity, we have to do the same to every human being. And so it would start with educating every individual. That means students, educators as well, oftentimes need to be aware of practices, best practices of what to do. Also having these youth be able to have events or work with other organizations. So for example, in some schools, there may be an Arab American student group. How do they work together to help get the word out and support students across the board? And so I like to think of them as an underrepresented group that we want to have more voice to. But again, this goes to all people who are diverse and different or underrepresented in our district. We need to make sure that their voice is heard, that people are aware of our unique differences and preferences on what we choose for life, and to support them as human beings at the end of the day. Education, you all will hear me speak to education a lot. It's what we do in our day-to-day for our entrepreneurs. When we learn and understand better, we are better human beings to supporting one another. And so I would also want to make sure this segment of students are a part of our governing council, are participating in meetings, are also helping advocate and educating us along the way.
Most definitely, most definitely. Thank you again. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about diversity, but in a language aspect. So our question is, how would you increase language accessibility and translation services within DPSCD schools and in communication with families? So in the Youth Collective, we have many students who are from Southwest who regularly, have their parents tell us, I don't even go to board meetings because I don't know what they're talking about, or I couldn't even understand this flyer that was sent home with my student. So what are some ways and some ideas that you have about how we can just increase the language accessibility and translation services in our schools and in how we communicate outside of school?
So one, acknowledging that public resources for the school can only do so much. So first, I always like to take a look at what is the current allocation specific to translation and language support. And from there, being able to leverage partnerships, whether corporate or philanthropy and nonprofit, In my day-to-day as CEO and president of Build Institute, I'm often leveraging other relationships and resources to help us with our translation and of not only when we're having classes, but also some of our curriculum and material. I would use some of the relationships that I have to reach out to fill gaps around whether it's we need some updated curriculum, whether we need to get a publication in Spanish for our youth to parents. There are organizations that I've worked with, quite frankly, that do translation when you're having meetings and or a conversation with a parent or caregiver. I think those solutions are very easy to figure that out. Now, do I know everything? No. Do I have blind sides? Yes, I do. And so those are things that I would do. But first, along with looking at the budget to see where money is going and is that adequate? And if it is all we have, then how do we fill in gaps with relationships that we have? I would ask the parents who are not, English isn't their first language. What do they need? How do they want to see and receive information? Again, in my day to day, and just as a person who had to struggle with information coming to me that wasn't for a visual learner, I always like to ask the user, like, how do you want to receive this information? What is your best way to communicate? And then we build from there.
Hey, thank you. Okay, my next question. During the final weeks of classes, Detroit schools had to end their days early due to the hot weather and having no AC. This is one of the many issues students face due to the conditions many DPSCD schools are physically in. How do you think this issue can be addressed by the public school board?
Well, working together as a board to find what other opportunities there are, again, in the budget or particular capital campaigns, what corporates out there would want to invest or adopt a school to help fix or renovate some of the buildings where there are HVAC issues and concerns. Also, where there are buildings that are still feasible and we can use those, reopening those to the standards of where students can learn, be warm and safe. And so I think it's important we got to find the money as a board, raising money, building relationships with folks who want to invest. I truly believe, and I'm one of those folks, people care about you. And I know sometimes it may not seem that way because sometimes folks can be quiet. But if we build as a board the right plan and strategy along with the youth and have parents and caregivers and administrators standing along beside us, corporates, I know they will dig deep and community will dig deep to make sure that you all have what you need in the schools. But we have to build it, and they don't have time to say, hey, here's your solution for you. So as a board, let us build the solution, go out there and market it and get people. In my day-to-day, I'm always out there, on behalf of entrepreneurs and people who want to be entrepreneurs, building ways that people can plug and play in our marketplace. And so that's the task for the board, to raise money. We only have so much in the budget, and there's certain priorities that are present, but there's still a need. And I truly believe that we can fill those needs with other relationships out here.
Thank you so much. So some of our members are also part of an organization called My Students Dream, which organizes at the intersection of immigration and education justice. Would you commit to filling out a survey created by our youth members? We will definitely send it to you within the next week.
Yes. Yes, that's also an important issue that we in the economic development entrepreneurial space talk about and work through and understand that that is extremely, extremely important. So I welcome that opportunity to complete that survey.
Thank you so much. Our students who also work for My Student Stream are going to really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
For sure. And our last question for you today, we're so grateful for all of your answers and for you spending, right after work or right after school or wherever you're coming from, spending that with us. Our last question is, if elected, would you commit to meeting with our youth within 6 months of your election?
Yes, and I would love to. Youth will be at the center. If I'm elected, youth will be at the center of everything that pertains to the district. In my day-to-day, I'll give this example. The entrepreneurs are who I serve. They are at the center of every decision. And I would love to be engaged and definitely want to meet with y'all and y'all tell me what to do. This is a public servant job. And so I will be here to serve in the best interest of the youth, period.
Great. Thank you so much for that. I think that's all from us. I'm gonna let Juanita wrap it up for us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Imani. And thank you so much for allowing us to interview you. And our youth are just so happy that we could do these interviews in general. So we appreciate allowing us to record and taking time out of your day to let us interview you. If you have any further questions for us, you could ask now or you could email me. It's the email that I sent in the Google invite. But one last thing before we sign off. Is there anything that we didn't ask you that you would have liked us to ask or would have liked us to know about?
Well, you all have asked some really, 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 really great questions. I think I would like to share what my 3 priorities are, if that's okay. Naturally, every child matters. So resources, equitable resources for every child across the district. Parent and caregivers' choice and voice. Children are most successful when their parent or caregivers are engaged in the process. And then supporting teachers. We know that our teachers are the brains and minds behind a lot of the engagement that goes on in our district. They are very important. Wanting to be able to get their voice and things and support them and have them have equitable pay as well as access to professional development. And so that's important for us to have a successful district going forward and working together. You'll find I'm a collaborator and a partner. So I look forward to an opportunity if elected. I consider myself wanting to partner with you all, partner with parents, partner with caregivers, partner with our board members, partner with administration. Partnerships are things that last. They're not as easy to break up, so to speak, right? And so I look forward to an opportunity to partner towards success and building on success of the district as we go forward. And thank you for this interview. I've been wanting to talk with you, the youth, and hear the youth perspective. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it and we appreciate your time. That is all from us, and hopefully we get to speak with you in the near future.
Thank you so much, y'all. I appreciate you. Take care, be well, and congratulations on all y'all success.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.